To the March meeting of the Sustainability, Housing Efficiency, and Neighborhoods Subcommittee. I am Councilwoman Kate Geigo of the pleasure of chairing the subcommittee. I'm joined today by Councilwoman Deborah Stark, and Councilman Jim Waring is with us telephonically. So if you hear a deep voice from above, you will know it is Councilman Waring. We are also joined by a very special guest today. Ryan is our mayor in training. And so if everyone could have a round of applause to welcome Ryan to. The city is very lucky to have him with us here today, and we hope that you enjoy the subcommittee. With that, we do not have any cards for the call to the public, so we'll begin the meeting with minutes. Do we have a motion to approve our minutes from our February 20th meeting?
I move to approve February 20th meeting minutes.
Second.
Yeah.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. One of the priorities of this subcommittee is working on the city's property ownership, and we have a great update in the council meeting packet that I would encourage everyone to read. It is an item on the consent agenda, along with requests for proposals. Does anyone have any questions on the consent agenda? With that, I'd entertain a motion to approve items 2 through 3.
I move to approve items 2 through 3.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
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 Passes unanimously. Wonderful, thank you, and thanks to the folks who are working hard to use the city's resources efficiently. One of our priorities is affordable housing, and today is an exciting council meeting for us, so I will welcome up our housing director, Cindy Stotler, to talk to us about awards on housing.
Good morning, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. With me today is Deputy Housing Director Titus Matthew, who will be co-presenting. We are very pleased to be here to discuss 195 new affordable housing units for homeless veterans. Is there a clicker? Cannot advance the presentation without my clicker. Yes, we are building suspense. So this is the old presentation. So the HUD Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, or VASH, program provides Section 8 vouchers to chronically homeless vets, and it combines that rental assistance with case management and clinical services by the Veterans Administration caseworkers to help the vets maintain their housing and their health, as well as provide job and education assistance and other service referrals. This program is very well intended, but it is hampered right now by a very strong rental market and low vacancy rates in rental housing. I'm sorry, this is an old presentation. We have changed our presentation. So project-based vouchers, today we are issuing, or we are awarding project-based vouchers because the normal Veterans Assisted Supportive Housing vouchers are housing choice vouchers, just like Section 8 housing choice vouchers. And what they do is allow the veterans to go out and find housing in the community. It's very well intended because we want to have them choose where they want to live. But we have 903 vouchers awarded to City of Phoenix from HUD for the veterans, and only about 750 on average are used every year. So we're underutilizing our veterans vouchers, and we know that they still need housing. We know that there are housing needs for the veterans. So we looked and spoke with our HUD representatives, and they do allow us to project base these vouchers to incentivize housing that is specifically constructed for homeless vets. And so that's what we have done. We have approval from the City Council, got that a while ago in June of 2017, to project base 100 Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing vouchers and 50 project-based vouchers, just to see if we could build new housing. And Titus is here to talk about the process. We were very successful in it. So.
Morning. So we had issued an RFP in the fall of 2017, and we received 8 proposals, and the panel recommended 3 projects to go forward to be awarded for recommendation. So the first one is Dunlap Housing, which is located at 14th Street in Dunlap, which is going to be a 54-unit studio units, which is going to house 36 VASH vouchers and 18 housing choice vouchers. It's meant for the chronically homeless, and we're excited about that project. It's a very good project too. The second one is Northern Gardens, which is in District 5, has 77 units. It's on 22nd Avenue in Northern. That's meant for senior veterans. We're going to recommend 20 VASH vouchers and 10 HCV vouchers. Oh, sorry. And the last one is Rehoboth Place. I had a tough time pronouncing that word, but anyway. It's 64 units for the chronically homeless, 44 VASH vouchers, and 20 Housing Choice vouchers. It's on 27th Avenue and Hazelwood. It's in District 4. And that's our recommendation. I'll turn it over to Cindy.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee. The Housing Department today is asking the subcommittee to recommend City Council approval to award 100 HUD Project-Based Veterans Affairs Supportive Housing, or VASH vouchers, and 48 Project-Based Section 8 Housing Choice vouchers to the 3 highest scoring proposers as listed.
Wonderful. We really appreciate the Housing Department responding to the needs in this community and trying to be creative about how we use the assets that we do have. Judging from the private sector interest, this was a tool we should continue to use, so thank you. Any questions from my colleagues?
No.
With that, I would entertain a motion for approval.
I move to approve per the recommendation from the Housing Department.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Wonderful. Thank you. And more good news. Cindy Stotler, our housing director, will stay up to talk about home funds.
So thank you for this presentation. I have Deputy Housing Director Angela Duncan to co-present. We are also excited to talk about this year's call for interest for federal home funds. So as we all know, quality affordable housing is critical to low-income households, and our current estimates indicate over 998,000 families are in need of affordable housing, especially quality affordable housing in the city of Phoenix. So to help address that need, the Housing Department uses our federal funding every year to provide loans to assist affordable housing developers. So every year to do this, we issue a call for interest for our federal funds to be used for the acquisition, construction, or redevelopment of affordable housing. Our call for interest identifies the community priorities set by you, the City Council, which include chronically homeless, special needs populations, victims of domestic violence and human trafficking, and applications that are submitted by community housing development organizations, nonprofits. Pictured are 2 recently completed projects that had their grand openings this year, both for chronically homeless individuals, Camelback Point in District 4, Native American Connections 54-unit affordable family development, and Rosewood Court, also in District 4, Catholic Charities Community Service, Inc. Developed a 50-unit family development. Both opened this year. Very excited to attend those openings. Last year in 2017, the City of Phoenix was very fortunate in being awarded 5 low-income housing tax credit projects from the state. These resulted in 333 new affordable housing units, and our $7 million of federal home loan fund loans to these projects was leveraged subsequently into $81.7 million investment in our community. So we're very excited about that. Lots of special communities were served by these investments, including victims of domestic violence, chronically homeless, veterans, persons with disabilities, and chronic substance abuse persons. So very excited about last year's low-income housing tax credit, and we hope that continues into the next couple of years. Angela Duncan is going to talk about our current process for this year.
Good morning, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. This year's call for interest was issued on November 3rd, and applications were due on January 12th. 13 proposals were received for that process. We did have an evaluation committee consisting of 2 city employees and 2 community representatives that met and scored all 13 proposals. The 5 highest scoring proposals were selected for funding. This evaluation was based on a 500-point scale, and the criteria included developer experience, project merits, and financial feasibility. The following 5 projects, I'm going to run through these details about these projects on each slide. So the first project is Stepping Stone 3, which is a proposed 42-unit new construction project developed by Native American Connections. This project is located near 16th Street and McDowell and will serve chronically homeless. The recommended home award is $620,000. The next project is Center Court, and this project is located near 7th Street and Indian School. It is a current 24 units developed by, and will be developed by Native American Connections. Project is recommended for a $1 million award and will serve homeless youth ages 18 to 24. Northern Gardens 2 is a second phase new construction project. This project is located near 22nd Avenue and Northern, and it's a planned 77 units to serve seniors and chronically homeless individuals. It is being developed by West Cap Investments and is recommended for a $1 million home award. Acacia Heights is being developed by Foundation for Senior Living and is a proposed 78 units that will serve seniors. It's located near 7th Avenue and Camelback, and $780,000 home award recommended. Final project is Courtyard at Mission Lane, to be located near 7th Avenue and Dunlap. Will be developed by Gorman and Company and Trellis. Its new 40 units will serve low-income families, and it's recommended for a $1 million award.
So the Housing Department is requesting the subcommittee recommends City Council approval to loan and disperse federal home funds to assist in the development of the selected affordable rental housing projects in the amount of $4.4 million.
Wonderful, thank you. We have several cards from partners in the industry, so we'll start with Reed Butler.
Thank you, Chair Gallego. And I do have a handout while we're doing this. So for the record, Reed Butler, 42 West Mariposa Street, Phoenix, Arizona. I'm the owner of Butler Housing Company. And I'm involved in two of the projects that were that applied for home funds this year and were not selected. And just a little bit of background, so that the Housing Department has recommended 5 projects. What happens in the, oh, now I got a tough audience over there. Whatever he says is what I'm doing. So
Brian looks like he has some good leadership.
I'm ready. Thank you. So 5 projects for home funds, but there's another process going on. It goes on every year. It takes place between now and this year, April 2nd, with the Arizona Department of Housing. So that's where the tax credits get awarded, which is by the Arizona Department of Housing. So our process in the city of Phoenix happens now, and then we all go and we apply on April 2nd. Those awards are made typically in June. It's a highly competitive process with a different scoring mechanism than the city's process, and it's a very precise scoring mechanism. So the request that I'm making, and our projects are up at the old El Caro Golf Course, and then one in Garfield in District 8 next to a building that we rehabbed back in 2012. Our request is there may be projects the city is recommending today that do not get awarded tax credits by the state. If that happens, then there would be home funds from this recommendation that are not being used. So our request is, if possible, that at that point, if there are projects that get tax credits but are not currently on the home recommendation list, that they could be considered for home funds as part of this process. The city would have to agree to leave the RFP procurement open, which I'm aware you've done in the past, maybe not in the housing sector, but on other RFPs where you've had projects ranked. So again, it's a very competitive process. We all believe in our projects and we advocate for our projects, and they're all good projects. I know all the developers working here, they do a great job. But our point is, if our projects do well at the state, we'd like to have a chance to have home funds. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions?
So could you just explain, Cindy, how that could happen if one of these wasn't accepted? Do we have the ability then to say we suggest another project?
So, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, we have conducted a formal procurement process for this process as mandated by our underwriting guidelines for federal home loan funds, and then also in our annual plans as to how we will distribute federal home loans. So at this point, HUD requires us to follow, if we are in a formal procurement process, they require us to follow that formal procurement process. So I believe we cannot deviate at this point from the formal procurement process that we have conducted. We could consider that.
So, and I've had this debate with Director Stotler, a polite debate. There are other jurisdictions in the state of Arizona that do not do a procurement process. They award home funds in a different process, more administratively. It does not go through their council in the formal way the city of Phoenix does. So I don't know that those are HUD rules. I think those are city of Phoenix rules. But again, the request is give us a chance to compete. We'll go compete at the state. If we don't get tax credits at the state, then there's no issue. But if we do, these are important projects in the city of Phoenix that we think should have financial support from the city.
Wonderful, thank you. Steve Hastings?
Good morning. Steve Hastings, Foundation for Senior Living, 1201 East Thomas Road in Phoenix. Chairwoman, subcommittee members, wanted to thank you for considering Acacia Heights as a project to fund with home funds this year. We're seeing unprecedented need in housing altogether, but in senior housing, we're seeing it grow and grow with no signs of tapering off. It used to be, if we had a property had 30 or 40 people on the wait list, that was a pretty healthy property. Now we see them in the ordinance of 400 and 500. So the selection of a project that serves seniors would be money well spent. In addition to the dwindling resources in the public sector for this type of housing, making home funds of this nature pretty precious in any project. Folks are coming into our properties now with much fewer resources than they had before. For many years, they came in with a little bit of retirement pension and maybe some savings and some Social Security. And now it's just Social Security. And many of those folks are struggling by with $700, $800 a month. And so they need a lot of services to pack in and support them. The location of this particular property is helpful in that it's very near the light rail. And a lot of folks will help them take advantage of that transportation. So thank you. Thanks to city staff for all their ongoing support as we put these projects together.
Wonderful, thank you.
Thank you.
The Foundation, FSL has been a great partner for us on many things, including we have an Age-Friendly Cities Task Force. And one of the things that has been coming up most often at the Age-Friendly Task Force is housing for seniors. So it came up after we had already approved at this subcommittee our annual action plan for this year, but I'm hopeful that next year that we can look at whether one of our top priority areas ought to be seniors. Although there is so much need in really every category, it really is a tough issue for our community right now. And on behalf of the subcommittee, thank you to all the partners who are helping us find good housing alternatives and do good work to create options for folks. And certainly the folks who are winning today, if you can tell your story, that is very helpful as well. One of our neighboring cities just launched a big project and did a lot of publicity around it. And we got emails at the council saying, why don't you do things like that? And we, in fact, were doing 10 times more projects in Phoenix, but maybe not telling our story as well. So for the folks who are winning today, if you can help tell the story of what we are doing a lot and all over the city. And it's really a pretty significant diversity of projects. Just today, we're everything from chronically homeless to veterans to youth. We have a great story to tell, and apparently we are not doing as good a job of telling it as we should, or maybe there's just too much noise out there. But certainly to the people who are moving forward with their projects, if you can do what you can to make sure that we tell the story, that would be very helpful. Sheila Harris.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gallego and members of the subcommittee. I have a question regarding if we left the RFP process open. This makes it extremely difficult for anyone who has received an award from the city to meet with the city, because it still would be under the open meeting law. So every time there was a meeting, everybody and their cousin would be invited to that. And it's extremely difficult in trying to finalize these developments as it is. And I appreciate that not everybody was able to get money. I know what that's like. I've personally had to do that myself, and it's not a fun thing to do. But I would hope we could finalize this today so everyone who has gotten awards can go forward and finalize their applications easily with the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we have a card from Bill Spreitzer, who is available to speak if requested. Would you? No, I'm fine. Perfect. We can ask you a bunch of tough questions. Any questions?
I agree with you today, Sheila. We probably, because of our RFP rules, it makes it a little complicated. I certainly would be open to pursuing what Mr. Butler is talking about in the future. I'd like to talk a little bit more about that, but I think today, and we've had a process, and so I'm ready to make a motion if.
He's coming back.
Oh, he's come back, okay.
All right. Make a slow motion.
He walks pretty fast. Okay, I'm going to make my motion. So I will move to approve per the recommendation of the Housing Department.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Congratulations to those awarded home funds. Good luck with your projects. Next, we move to an item on our sustainability topic, the Phoenix Food Action Plan. And welcome Roseanne Albright, our Acting Environmental Programs Administrator, up to introduce a prestigious panel.
Wow. Yeah, yes, you do.
Great, thank you. Good morning. I'm here with, you are absolutely right, a great group of colleagues and friends that I've gotten to know over the past few years in the health and food industry. I have Adonis Dennis with Mercy Maricopa and Health Improvement Partnership of Maricopa County, Seth Rich with Health Improvement Partnership of Maricopa County, Jason Matthews with Valley of the Sun United Way, and Kenneth Steele with Maricopa County Food System Coalition. So we're here today to talk to you about food. An awesome topic. Everybody loves food. Maybe a little love-hate relationship, but we all love to eat food. As a matter of fact, we love food so much that a study back a few years from NPR found that every person eats about 2,000 pounds of food every year. That's about 1.6 million tons of food here in the city of Phoenix alone. So that's a lot of food to get onto your plate through this entire food system, from growing, harvesting, distributing, selling, getting it on your plate, and then what do we do with that waste? Maybe sometimes compost it, get it back into the ground, and start that system all over again. So we thank City Council for approving our 2050 food system goal to maintain a sustainable, healthy, equitable, and thriving local food system. By achieving that type of system, we desire to improve the quality of life for everyone in our city by significantly reducing the rates of hunger, obesity, and diet-related diseases. I want to pause for a moment and have you take a look at the slide, and all of the beautiful strawberries, potatoes, onions, squash, cucumbers, tomatoes that are there on that slide were grown right here in Phoenix, in South Phoenix, as a matter of fact, at Tiger Mountain Foundation and Pueblo Viejo Fields. So we certainly are seeing a lot of great urban agriculture in our city. How are we going to get to achieve our goal of making food available for everyone, healthy food accessible? In our general plan, we talk about increasing the number of residents that live within a quarter mile of a healthy food outlet. We also want to increase urban agriculture in all of its forms, hydroponics, aquaponics, which is growing fish and produce together, vertical farming, container farming, community gardens, backyard gardens. There's all kinds of things out there to help us with food production. We also want to ensure that we have a farmer's market in each of our 15 urban villages, and we want to adopt zoning, land use guidelines, and other policies to help us improve our food system. How we started doing this is really to learn from the best practices that are out there and really to gather input from stakeholders in the food system. Because we all eat, that's everyone. That's a big task, but we're up for it. And we also want to bring experts to the table, hence my lovely table here, and to help us develop those partnerships to ultimately develop a food action plan that will identify how we're going to achieve our goal. So this slide just shows you a few examples of activities that are happening in other cities across the country. In Seattle, they've allocated funding specifically for land preservation for farmland and forest land. In Oakland, California, and Orlando, Florida, they've established hyper-local urban farming in backyard gardens where they get in a really cute little red wagon and bicycle and sell that produce throughout the neighborhood and at local farmers markets. And then we have a little bit of innovation going on in San Diego, where they worked to establish a nonprofit grocery store where residents from the neighborhood actually have ownership in that grocery store, creating jobs and economic prosperity for the neighborhood. And here in Phoenix, we certainly are leading by example as well. Just about a month ago, we had our first food and fitness challenge, where we engaged with the Phoenix Union High School District and the Mullen Foundation through a grant from the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And over a 30-day period, using social media, high schools competed against each other to test their knowledge in health, nutrition, and cooking. And the winners of that campaign came together at Alhambra High School to the track and field, and there was an obstacle course set up to test their fitness capabilities and their knowledge of nutrition and cooking. They even got together and did a teamwork and prepared a salad. And in the end, the winner was Linda Abril Education Academy, who has bragging rights, a trophy, and won $2,500 grand prize to help them take it back to their school and continue their food and fitness challenges. So we're one of the first to do something like this across the country. Now, what is a food action plan? It really is a blueprint for items to address the entire food system, to really identify specific strategies and actions that we can take to improve those policies, programs, and education. In order to start developing that, OEP, as the goal leader for local food systems, last year got together first a group of 6 departments from the city to start to talk and engage and learn about what each other is doing and what we all knew about the food system. And I have some folks here from economic development and planning that were able to be here today as well to share in that information process. As we gathered that information, drafted our framework, we also brought in a small group of stakeholders, including some of the folks here, in addition to local farmers, residents, and health professionals, to give us some input on that framework. And then our next step is really to get out into that broader group of stakeholders and residents. So I just wanted to show you the framework that we've developed to date. It's very, very draft. It hasn't been vetted out to the entire community, so I'm sure it will be massaged. This might be chapters in the plan. So we're looking at the retail component, the traditional supermarkets, to the non-traditional like food hubs and food co-ops, youth involvement, urban agriculture, food waste and recovery. So, for example, in the urban agricultural section, we may talk about policies, partnerships, education, programs, and services that could all help us improve urban agriculture in our city. So as we continue down this process, we are here today to share with you what our partners have been doing with us and what we hope to do in the future. So these partnerships we've been working on, we were just talking this morning, it's been about 3 or 4 years since we've been working together with Health Improvement Partnership of Maricopa County, Valley of the Sun United Way, and Maricopa County Food System Coalition, which the City of Phoenix was one of the founding members as well. So I am going to turn it over to Adonis to talk about HIP-MC.
Thank you, Roseanne, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. The Health Improvement Partnership of Maricopa County is a collaborative group of several different organizations. Our vision is a county with collaborative communities and stakeholders equipped with resources, opportunities, and environments to maximize health and well-being for all. To accomplish that vision, we go through our values, which are diversity, health equity, access, education, and collaboration. That structure is formed, the vision is surrounded through the county, which is kind of the backbone organization, helps do a lot of the actual work logistically, but it's also composed of over 100 different partners from the community from various different sectors. It also has a steering committee that's very applicable process as far as applying for membership on the steering committee, and then through all of these different partnerships forming work groups to help address our priority areas, which are access to care, access to healthy food, and early childhood development. Now, I think it's important to note that these priorities were selected through really community voice, a lot of surveys, community forums, getting out there, talking to different agencies, providers, community members, community forums, and so forth. So this really is community voice, identifying what the needs of the local community are throughout Maricopa County. And lastly, this is an extensive list of the community partners, and Seth can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this actually includes everybody because there's not enough room on the slide.
A good problem to have.
Yes. So with that, I will turn it over to Jason and talk with Valley of the Sun United Way.
So Valley Sun United Way is very excited to be a part of this collaboration. We are committed to breaking the cycle of poverty in Phoenix and Maricopa County. And we know that in order to address the issues of poverty, that we must tackle those issues that this committee deals with all the time, such as housing, income, homelessness, and of course, hunger and food insecurity. And we also know that we have this history that we must partner with nonprofits that are based in communities to provide those immediate interventions, everything from food pantries to congregate meals, all of those vital services to address the immediate issue around food insecurity and hunger. But we also know that we must partner with institutions and coalitions, such as you see at this table and others, to address those root causes of why people are going into those services in the first place. Because if we really want to be serious about ending hunger, we must be able to work with others to co-create those long-term sustainable solutions. And it's not just working with other institutions here at the table, but as some of you know, working with community members as well and local community coalitions to co-create those solutions that actually have community buy-in. We don't want to be institutions that go in there and do things to community. We actually want to work with community and actually create those long-term solutions. So this is one of the many reasons why we are excited and honored to join this collaboration with HIPMC, Maricopa County Food System Coalition, which we were also a founding member of as well, and our longtime partner of the City of Phoenix. We know and we're excited that by working together, we can not only accelerate the great work that's here, but we can also build those sustainable solutions that will benefit all residents in Phoenix and also become a best practice for other communities across Maricopa County and beyond. So with that, I'll turn it over to Kenneth.
So I just have one slide for the Food System Coalition. So thank you, Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. My name's Kenneth. I'm a policy analyst with Maricopa County Department of Public Health. And actually our role at the County Department of Public Health a lot of times is to help convene different coalitions like the HIPMC and others that are addressing a variety of issues that are related to the public's health. So like Roseanne and Jason have mentioned, we were there early on whenever we were forming this food system coalition. Officially, we began in 2015, and actually tomorrow we celebrate our 3rd anniversary. So we're going to have a special event tomorrow at the AE England building. But Roseanne and I have known each other since early 2014. Prior to launching the Food System Coalition, Roseanne actually was able to bring a few key stakeholders out to Santa Fe. And we learned from a bunch of other food system coalitions and food policy councils that exist around the nation prior to starting our initiative. So you can tell we're a group that likes to plan ahead, to learn from others, to not make the same mistakes that they did. And so since 2015, we've been meeting regularly every month, 2.5 hours a month, and then multiple work groups and committees that meet in between. We're a dedicated group that really enjoys this type of work working in the food system. And so I think so far we've done a great job. Some of the things that we mentioned that's in your packet include the annual Phoenix Food Day event, which is a great event that really is a great collaborative event between the Maricopa County Food System Coalition, the city, and other stakeholders to get in the community and to have health education and some great events. And then also this year, this past year in 2017 and in 2018, our focus has been a regional food system assessment. So this was a possibility through a generous grant from the Gila River Indian community. And so again, we're doing more assessing and more planning about really what the solutions are in our community. And my favorite, the thing that we've been working on as well, are a lot of policy changes in terms of how we can support urban agriculture in our community. So far we've made some changes related to the guidelines for community gardens, streamlining processes for farmers markets, and getting those up and running. But there are a lot of other issues that we still need to address. So we have some ambitious goals for 2050. We have some great goals in the general plan, but the food action plan will give us the steps that we need to reach those goals and to work in a collaborative manner with a lot of other organizations to get there. So we're looking forward to this opportunity. We're going to continue to plan to do the best that we can to improve the food system here and to meet our mission, which is to support and grow a food system in Maricopa County that is equitable, healthy, sustainable, and thriving. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And if we could move that slide one more time. And so ultimately, we want to request approval to enter into a memorandum of understanding with the Health Improvement Partnership of Maricopa County Food System Coalition, and the Valley of the Sun United Way to collaborate on development of the Phoenix Food Action Plan. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. And thank you all for your work on this very important issue, longtime partnerships, happy anniversary. Phoenix has some very ambitious sustainability goals, our Sustainability 2050 goal. We are not one to shirk away from a challenge, and so we have said as a city we want to eliminate food deserts. It is a big challenge to be able to do that, and we won't be able to do it without your help. So the fact that you're here today and continuing to work with us shows that we have the right partners and we're taking the right steps to meet that ambitious goal, and that we're doing it with our community partners. I really appreciated Mr. Matthews mentioning that communities have resources to solve their own problems, and part of the time it's just supporting the work and that they are already doing. We have some great leaders here today who have filled out cards. My Village Planning Commission Chair, George Brooks, Jr. Yes, I was trying to, you were in my blind spot, so thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair, council people, and all of the committee, and all here to hear. I'm here this morning to actually commend the city of Phoenix. When we wrote, I was also the vice chair, thanks to, and working with the councilwoman of the Plan Phoenix general plan. And during that plan, we offered the city an opportunity, everyone in the city, an opportunity to say what they wanted in that plan. And the urban agriculture communities responded. And because of that, and because of the hard work of a number of people, we were able to put into the general plan a very powerful statement and segment that was the catalyst for everything you're hearing today. And not only this, because of this, and because of the work of Ms. Albright and many others, the city of Phoenix is taking on a national leadership role in urban agriculture. As you saw at the beginning of the presentation, we are not alone. San Diego, Boston, and even right now, I should say next week, the city of Atlanta is putting on a full urban agriculture conference called Aglanta, of which, strangely enough, one of the major sponsors is the University of Arizona, which demonstrates to you the possibilities here. Now, I'm not going to talk long, which is rare for me, but I would like to bring in one last aspect to this. Now, I'm chair of South Mountain. In South Mountain, we have food deserts, and food deserts, we need to get rid of them. And as Ms. Albright said, we eat, what was it? How many billion pounds of food was that? 1.6 billion pounds of food, according to NPR. Everyone eats 2,000 pounds each. I don't. But nevertheless, there's a powerful economic incentive with this as well. I know urban agriculture, but backyard farmers who are saving $400 a month by eating their own food. That's, that's 12 times, 4 times, 400 times 12, that's $4,800 a year, if I add it correctly. That's a lot of money for somebody. No, I wouldn't mind someone giving me a check for $4,800. All of these things are coming from urban agriculture. And the last part is that urban agriculture is creating a new business model. It's called ag tech, agriculture technology. Jeff Bezos bought Whole Foods for a reason, because everyone has to eat. And so these technologies to feed perhaps 10 billion pounds, 10 billion people in this world must come in because we're basically out of land, out of water, but we still have to eat. As any technology sector, this is a high dollar, high opportunity, job creating opportunity that Phoenix now has because we don't have any water either, therefore, or not as much as we need. And so therefore these technologies, like in Israel, that is an ag tech leader, can now come into here to create new jobs, new opportunities, and new ways to provide food in this world. And so with that, all because of the catalyst coming from what Roseanne and her office is doing, these are now opportunities we have for the city, and I look forward to seeing what happens next thanks to your efforts. Now, I'm tempted to put an amen in here, but I'm going to hold that back. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Brooks. And we're certainly lucky that Phoenix is home to a leader of the national caliber of Dr. Brooks. After educating me, I had a great meeting with Dr. Robbins of the University of Arizona about the ideas of making ag tech part of our economic development strategy, and he said the university had a lot of resources to partner with us, so hopefully good things ahead in that area, and maybe that will help us with the ambitious goals that Roseanne is leading us toward, so that when Ryan is mayor, we can officially declare the end of food deserts in Phoenix. Dave Laney.
Hello, my name is Dave Laney. I work for ATC Group Services. I'm also representing the Arizona Health Fields Initiative and the Community Gardeners of Maricopa County. I wanted to speak in support of this idea of a MOU between the City of Phoenix, United Way, HIP MC, and Maricopa County Food System Coalition. I think not only is the City of Phoenix becoming a national leader in this area, but a leader in the county as well. I think there aren't many other cities that are making food a priority, and so this is a very important thing, particularly given that more than 75% of the food deserts in Maricopa County are in the city, and more than 50% of the population live in food deserts. What's important about this effort today is that the city recognizes that the best way to come up with solutions is to collaborate with other organizations that are working to solve these same problems, which have been longstanding. And, you know, it's been a long time for them to develop, so they won't be solved overnight. But the fastest way to get to a solution is to actually team up with other organizations. And I'm very proud that the city is taking this step to try to do that today. So, thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for your partnership. Any questions from my colleagues? And the last speaker mentioned health fields, which we had a great presentation from Roseanne about our Brownfields to Health Fields initiative, which is probably one of the most important things we're doing to move towards this goal, and a lot of progress in that area. So if people weren't here for that, I would encourage them to review it. So there was great information there. Something we're taking very seriously. Our city manager is very involved with, particularly from the Valley of the Sun United Way perspective, and several council members are leading initiatives in their districts to try to address these issues. So very optimistic about the future on these issues. I want to thank you all for the work you are putting into it. With that, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the recommendation on the entering into the MOU.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Congratulations and keep up the great work. Now we will move to one of the top issues in our city, our homeless response strategy, and welcome our Deputy City Manager, Deanna Jonovich.
Thank you, Chairwoman and members of the subcommittee. We are pleased to be here today to provide you an update on our Phoenix Cares initiative. At the table with me today is Human Services Director Marshall Franklin, Neighborhood Services Director Chris Howlett, and Commander Anthony Vasquez with our police department. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Franklin to walk through the presentation.
Good morning, Chairwoman and members of the subcommittee. Phoenix Cares implemented There we go. All right. Phoenix Cares, implemented in November 2017, utilizes existing resources from a number of city departments to connect individuals experiencing homelessness with services while reducing the impact on our community. Chris will now discuss the features of Phoenix Cares.
Thank you, Marshall. Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee. A quick overview of the Phoenix Cares program shows it is a one-stop, single point of contact approach to customer service. All reports come into one call center where the report is acknowledged, triaged, and then dispatched accordingly. Now, our contracted Community Bridges outreach team is dispatched first to respond to reported homeless on site, where they make contact, engage with them, and connect them to needed services. CBI team will also take whatever actions are necessary, including directly driving the homeless to services such as shelter, homeless, or other needed services. Now, on occasion, when those in camping choose not to accept these services or to move from the location, CBI may refer them to police, who will also attempt to lead with services and get them connected or otherwise motivate them to leave the site or begin documentation for possible enhanced prosecution. Now, once all the individual aspects of the encampment have been cleared, we will work with the property owner to get the encampment cleaned up. Now, here's a breakdown of the first 3 months of reported calls for service. More than 50% of those come in during regular business hours and are immediately acknowledged by a live person. 25% of the calls are receiving an acknowledgement through our automated online pay system. And about 12% of the calls are coming in at night or on the weekends, where they will have received an acknowledgement by the next business day. Now, of the nearly 1,100 reported requests for services, 2/3 of those are encampment related, with a 50-50 split of those being on public versus private property. The remaining third of cases are non-encampment related and only include individuals. That leaves us with a net result of 849 unique case locations. The difference between the 1,100 and 849 are duplicate case locations. This slide depicts that Phoenix Cares takes a variety of departments in order to resolve these cases. A number of department referrals show the vast majority of cases involve 2 or more departments to resolve, with the vast majority of them going through the Human Services Department. Marshall will now walk us through her department case referral process and outcomes.
Thank you, Chris. Phoenix Cares is designed to lead with services. Of the 790 cases referred to the Human Services Department, Community Bridges, or CBI, contacted 399 individuals. Many times when CBI is responding to a location, either the individual or individuals are no longer on site or leave as CBI approaches. That's why there is the difference between the number of cases referred to our department and the actual number of individuals contacted. Of the 399 individuals that were contacted, 65% were male, 35% were female, and the majority ranged in age from 25 to 55 plus years old. And going forward, we will also begin gathering data from CBI on individuals who are minors, so between the age of that 0 to 17 years old. Currently, it's reported under families, and we have asked CBI to break that out by that individual age category as well. So we'll have that for you the next time we come before you. Of the 399 individuals contacted and who were willing to provide information, they self-reported in various areas such as being disabled, being a veteran, having health insurance, and were determined to be chronically homeless. And chronically homeless is defined as someone who's been homeless at least a year and also has a disability. Of the 399 individuals that were contacted, 277 received various services such as assessments, shelter, transportation, connection to benefits such as health insurance, Social Security benefits, and workforce development. And of the 277 receiving services, 10% were off the street. One success story that we would like to share with the subcommittee is we had a 76-year-old female who had been homeless since September of 2016 after her husband had passed away. She was unable to afford the monthly payments on her home and was evicted. CBI conducted outreach and determined she had numerous health challenges and required the use of a wheelchair. She was placed into temporary housing, shelter, but after reaching the maximum time allowed in shelter, she chose to go back on the streets. 2 weeks later, doing what CBI does, found her sleeping on the streets and reiterated to her the need and the desire to help her with services. This time, she accepted those services, including a doctor's appointment, which was able to determine her disability status. She was provided with a navigator, which is an individual to help her through those appointments and help her with the completion of the numerous documents that are necessary while she was temporarily sheltered. And in January of this year, she was able to move into her own apartment. So this is just one example of many of how the outreach system works. As mentioned at the beginning of our presentation, there are many resources in our Phoenix Cares Toolkit. Commander Anthony Vasquez will now discuss another one of those tools.
Good morning, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm Anthony Vasquez of the Mountain View Precinct. I actually have the misdemeanor repeat offender program assigned to me in the precinct. The squad was established to address those individuals that were affecting our calls for service and driving up our crime stats. The squad is actually our liaison with the police department in the Phoenix Cares program. So over a 3-month, the 3-month activity or the 3-month time period that we've had 284 contacts with our detectives with individuals. We've broken those down into 153 incident reports, and those are criminal reports that we've taken for prosecution, and then 131 field interrogation cards. So we make sure that we're documenting all the contacts we have with everybody. So our enforcement component for those 3 months, we had 21 cases that were submitted to the city prosecutor for misdemeanor charges, and then we sent 42 cases to the county attorney's office for felony charges. So the actual cases that were sent to the police department, there were 117 that were routed to us through the Phoenix Cares program. So our MROP detectives are the initial touch for every one of those cases. We wanted consistency with the police department when we did those. Now the only difference is once the MROP detectives did the initial touch, they would then use the resources in the different precincts throughout the city for follow-up or sustainability in the areas. We also try to work with all the other city departments. We do our trespassing enforcement and posting of authority to arrest at locations that need them, and then we provide security to the other city departments for cleanup efforts. And Chris will walk us through some of those cleanup efforts.
Yes, thank you, Commander. Yes, last but not least, before closing any case, yes, the key is the property cleanup. Here are some examples of encampments and the numbers involving reported on both public and privately owned property. Shown is an encampment on publicly owned property just south of the downtown. And here are the pictures after the cleanup and what you would expect to see at the over 400 public and private property cleanups that Public Works, Streets Transportation, Neighborhood Services, and private property owners have been able to clean up during the first 3 months of operation. Now, Marshall will walk us through a real-life soup-to-nuts example of the Phoenix Cares holistic approach to responding to a customer call regarding a large-scale encampment.
Thank you again, Chris. A recent encampment at 4th Avenue and Lincoln Streets highlights how the Phoenix Cares program works to connect individuals in our community experiencing homelessness with appropriate services while reducing the impact that homelessness has on our community. This was 2 encampments that quickly grew to 16, as you can see on the slide. Specific to the individuals on the camp, there were 16. CBI was able to place 9 in services, including a veteran who was placed in transitional housing and 2 individuals who were placed in a substance abuse recovery center. We had 6 who declined services. In terms of the remaining 7, we had 6 who declined services, and we had 1 individual who was arrested for an outstanding warrant. On the property itself, the owner had an authority to arrest. The property owner helped clean their lot. It was a private lot. And then our Public Works Department helped clean the right-of-way areas. Madam Chairman and members of the subcommittee, that concludes our presentation.
Wonderful, thank you. We have 1 card from someone who has a lot of hats at the city, including chairing our planning commission, so Justin Johnson.
Was a much longer walk than I thought it was, but
Built to expect.
Yes, exactly. Yes, Madam Chair, members of the committee, I'm Justin Johnson. I'm the chairman of the Planning Commission. In my profession, I build homes for people that can afford a house. In my volunteer time, I actually am a board member at CAS working to try and help find shelter and housing for people that cannot afford it. CAS is very, sorry, my phone's ringing. CAS is, very supportive of Phoenix Cares. We like the concept of the program from most of the members that I've talked to and worked with. The biggest concern, and something I just want to put on your guys' radar, is that, CAS is constantly struggling financially because we continue to get federal cuts, state cuts. City of Phoenix has been a great partner and in fact even increased our budget slightly last year to help out, but we're like $150,000 short this year of potentially closing the doors at CAS. We already have to turn away several folks that are walking up and coming into the shelter as it is today, and we're the largest shelter services in the Southwest. So again, very supportive of Phoenix Cares. We really appreciate and think it's a great program. We think it has, it clearly has tremendous success and will hopefully continue to do so. But we need to also work, I think, in collaboration and partnership with some of the shelter services and programs that are out there. So thank you again for your time.
Wonderful, thank you, and thank you for your service. Director Franklin had set up an opportunity for me to go out and shadow community bridges, which was enormously helpful for me to understand what we're doing and the important work. And it was great to see most of the people with whom we met accepted services, which was wonderful, but it did open up my eyes a little bit about how even once you've gotten someone to accept services, there's still some huge challenges. So we had a woman who self-identified as severely mentally ill, who accepted services, and what happened was that she did not have a driver's license, and so although there was housing available for someone like her, she first had to get the driver's license, and it, I guess, cost $12, and she didn't have $12, so they asked that she go down and fill out paperwork to get a voucher to get the $12, and then she'd have to come back and get the driver's license, and then they'd mail her the driver's license, and then once she had the driver's license, she could come back and get housing. And it was a big deal. She'd accepted services. I think it took months to get there in the first place, so it was a little painful to me to see how many steps there were to get that successful housing when there was a unit available. So can we help her?
Sure. So, Madam Chair and members of the subcommittee, thank you, first of all, for going on the ride along. Secondly, you were very gracious in sharing with us some opportunities in which we could create more efficiencies. And so we're pleased to announce, thanks to you and other members of the subcommittee, and bringing it to our attention that one of those issues you brought up, which is related to the vouchers. And yes, you are correct. It costs about $12 for an individual to receive a state-issued ID. And it was a very complicated process, if you will, requiring many steps. And we're pleased to announce that effective April 1st, in working with the Valley of the Sun United Way, we will be able to provide vouchers directly to individuals. So instead of 2 or 3 steps to receive an ID, which is critical to receiving services, we'll be able immediately, after determining the need, provide the voucher and then take them right to motor vehicle department to receive that state-issued ID. So thank you for bringing that to our attention. We appreciate Valley of the Sun United Way working very quickly with us because you brought that to our attention, and within about a month we were able to work with them to move forward with creating an efficiency and really trying to eliminate the barriers that preclude individuals from being able to move from being homeless to being sheltered. So thank you for your leadership in bringing that to our attention.
Wonderful.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for finding a good solution.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilwoman.
Congratulations, Madam Chair. Very quick question. Could you talk a little bit about how many times you have to touch a person before they accept? Is that part of the problem that you go out and sometimes they don't want your help and you have to keep going? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yes,
maybe?
Madam Chair and Councilwoman Stark, you are very correct. There are times when you can have one touch, if you will, with an individual, and they will transition into services. But oftentimes, if you think about individuals who we're trying to reach, it takes 7, 8, 9 touches. It's creating rapport, it's establishing trust. It's a whole host of things that you have to work through to even get an individual to want to move to services. So we find when we have the opportunities to be able to have more than one touch, that we find we have a higher success rate. I mentioned in our example about the 76-year-old individual woman, we were able to provide her a navigator navigator, if you will, and that navigator was vitally important in walking with her through that process. Hand-holding, if you will, sometimes that's a necessity, encouraging her, helping her with the paperwork. It can be laborious, it can be a lot of paperwork, but we're finding when we have the opportunity to be able to have more than one touch and to walk individuals through the process and walk with them, we can have more success. Of course, we know that we have limited resources, and we initially created Phoenix Cares with existing resources. So, of course, any opportunity where we can provide navigators, teams that can be specific to walking individuals through the process, we believe we can be even more successful in getting more individuals in our community who are homeless to being home owners or home shelter, being unsheltered or being sheltered.
Just one other, maybe talk to you a little bit about panhandling. I know that it's not illegal. So Commander, maybe you can talk a little bit about what the police tries to do, because I do get a lot of calls on this, and it's hard for people to understand, but it isn't illegal. So what does the police department do to step up and?
Madam Chair and Councilwoman Stark, yes. Street soliciting is not illegal for individuals. Excuse me. There are certain partnerships that we have throughout the city, especially with the Department of Transportation up around some of the freeway access roads. In those locations where it's actually posted and we have authority to arrest on file, we can take criminal enforcement on those individuals. There are locations, though, that will see that individuals are hanging out adjacent to those locations. And the perfect example is a sidewalk. Anywhere that any individual has the opportunity to walk on a sidewalk, somebody can actually solicit money from those locations. And that's most of the locations that we're going to wind up contacting people. Now, if they're stepping into the roadway, causing some type of traffic hazard, impeding traffic, we can take enforcement action on those also.
Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark, if I might let Chris elaborate a little bit on what we're doing in addition to what police is doing to help educate and get the word out through businesses on not giving money and some more of the educational opportunities.
Thank you, because that was going to be my next question, was to talk a little bit about how we're partnering with the faith-based community to do some of that
Yes.
outreach. Good segue.
Yes, Madam Chair, Councilwoman Stark. We are working with about 40 different community stakeholders, neighborhood association, faith-based and whatnot. We meet on a monthly basis. In fact, I think they're meeting this week as well. And they've been successful in the past coordinating. We work with other communities on coordinating a grassroots message to business owners, and those on how to appropriately give and the negative impacts of inappropriate giving. And we've also worked, as mentioned earlier, the CAS and the campus on similar messaging on when it comes to holiday season. There's a increase in number of people wanting to give, and they're always giving in a neighborhood they don't necessarily live in, and they don't necessarily always realize the impacts those have. So we've had a lot of good success in putting out a grassroots message and I think some of the council members have been very obliging in sending those same messages out to organizations that use their own newsletters in order to educate. And it's very powerful when some of the faith-based themselves who are out mission-driven as they are, and how to appropriately give, and recognizing that there are better ways. Nobody's saying they can't help. It's just there's better ways they can help it, and we're not wasting people's time, effort, and resources.
So just as a follow-up, I know it's very difficult. You guys have a difficult job, and I know that a lot of the public don't really understand or doesn't understand what's going on. But I think if there's any way as council, if we can better educate people and help with any ways to get the word out that we do care, but there's ways that we can care and the ways we can give. And so any kind of educational materials that we can share, anything you suggest, I want to be a part of that to let our residents know that we are trying. We really are trying. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your leadership in trying to get out the good information. Councilman Waring.
Thank you. So back to something Deborah was talking about earlier, the panhandling on the sides of the streets. We had an ordinance 3 or 4 years ago now about the medians, which is what I see. Deborah and I share a border, so I drive along it all the time on Shea, Cactus, so forth, and you do see it. It's very prevalent where I've lived up there 20 years, I know you've been up there a lot longer, where you're seeing people where you never used to see them before. I know there's been a 60% increase the last couple of years, but this predates that. And I don't know that it's increased 60%, you might differ, Deborah, in the last 2 years, but it almost sprang up out of nowhere. There was nobody, and then there was just people on almost every intersection. It almost seems like it's calmed down a little bit recently, and it's my driving experience. But you can't stand in the medians of the street, correct? That's where people can call in and you get contacted by police.
Councilman Warren, that's correct. There are locations, the medians that we have enforcement capabilities. Those aren't necessarily criminal citations. Those are more fine-based actions that we can take place with those. It's not always a deterrent for some of the individuals to do it because the risk is worth the reward they're receiving. So they'll continue going to those locations because of it. And then the other thing we have to have is we have to have consistent enforcement of it. And that's one of the problems that we've had in the last year or two is having the resources out there to continually hit those locations to try and deter people. And let's face it, it's profitable right now. So
you raise a good point, Madam Chair. I mean, you definitely see people on the sides of the roads, people and running out into traffic. It drives me crazy. I see it a lot on Tatum and Shea. If I'm coming north, Deborah, you're nodding your head. I know it's your district, but I drive through it because I live on our border. It's amazing what you see, and that's what 4 or 5 lanes there because you got the left turn lane, and then 3 lanes. You got a right. So I think it's 5 rows of cars, and people are darting out, and people are giving them money. I understand that people probably think that that's the right thing to do, and I totally understand the thought behind it, but I'm not sure you guys would agree that that's something that's really helpful to the situation. I also have concerns. It just occurred to me the other day, nobody was in the median. I was trying to get on the 51. I think it was a Cactus, but I noticed, wow, it's kind of an encampment right there. I mean, there was nobody to call it in on because there was nobody there. Were they coming back? I don't know. I'm not even sure what I would have told the officers if I would have called it in myself. But there were a bunch of water bottles and stuff. I don't know if people have been giving them water bottles or whatever, but it was all ready made for someone to stand out there all day if somebody came back. I saw no evidence anybody was there, but they either left their stuff or they just assumed they were coming back the next day to be there. And I'm like, wow, that's kind of like you might expect if you're moving into, I'm not making light of it, like a college dorm or something. It was like stuff and a backpack and water. It just, like, wow, you really gotten to the point where people just feel comfortable, I guess, being homeless, being in that median, and now just leaving their stuff there for the next time they want to come back. I recognize citizens, and some of the citizens I've talked about this, I recognize here at this meeting, that's a source of frustration. So I guess if officers see something like that, I don't know how you impound it. I guess it's on public property. The material value of the stuff was probably almost zero, but the water, you could put $2 a case at Fry's or something. So there's that. I also get, complaints. We have a lot of state trust land in at least my specific district. And so people are mad that Chris's team can't go out. We call it in. We don't always know. They're giving us kind of a broad description. So I don't necessarily know is that straight trust land or kind of what's the intersection. Sometimes they don't have the right side of the street. And that does matter in these things. So I know there's been confusion in the past about, what we can do and what we can't. And I think we have to get permission from the state, correct, to go out there and clean up an encampment that's not on our property, just like, I was thinking about this specifically because of your thing about public versus private land. For our purposes, that might as well be private land because we can't just go out there, even though it's a government entity, and explain this to constituents is a lot of fun, I might add. We can't just go out there and clean it up, even though it's not owned by a company, it's not a house, it's still another government entity. We have to get permission, and dealing with the state, as any constituent could probably tell you who's ever called, is not always the simplest thing. It's a big state. They get a lot of calls. So I just wanted, those couple things bring to your attention. I think it was also mentioned, I think Deborah mentioned it, stores and what they can do. I have personally, again, received complaints about stores that were in another district, particularly along a certain stretch, that they don't, if they're shoplifting and stuff, they don't want to, prosecute. I guess that's because it's time intensive for them and so forth. But I would certainly appreciate if there are outreach efforts We also had a complaint, lest I forget, in my district. Again, I won't mention the name of the store, but it's a big outlet, bless you. It's a big outlet that everybody's heard of. You know, they felt it okay to just let people kind of hang out outside and panhandle while their customers and the surrounding neighborhood aren't thrilled about that. But we really can't do anything, correct, unless there's a complaint from the private property owner. Is that a fair assessment? And that's frustrating because we could be helping those people. I'm not saying go prosecute them, just, you know, try to at least contact community services. But my understanding is that's not something we can do unless the business owner is complaining about it. A private citizen complaining who doesn't own the property, that doesn't count, right?
So Chairwoman Gallego and Councilman Waring, I can't answer for the law enforcement perspective, but if there are individuals who we see there's some opportunity for us to lead with services, you can call Phoenix Cares. That doesn't prohibit individuals in the community, even if they happen to be on private property, from contacting Phoenix Cares at our Phoenix Cares number, the 602-262-6251, option 6. So that is the first thing. It at least allows us the opportunity to be able to go and do some additional investigation, if you will, to determine if there's some opportunity to lead with some services, if there's an opportunity to educate the property owner about how we can best serve individuals who may be on their property soliciting for food or money or those types of things. And then the second thing, when you do see materials that appears to be vacated, you may also call Phoenix Cares about that as well, because it potentially could be even on a median or sliver of property, it could be considered an encampment in which we have the ability to be able to go out and do an assessment. And if it happens to be in public right of way, we can address it. If it happens to end up being private property or state land, if you will, we still can make the assessment, but we encourage everyone to please feel free to call that Phoenix Cares number or to go online to Phoenix Pays, I believe it is. So either call it in or go online, and at least staff can take a look and triage and assess it, and then we can go from there.
Madam Chair, I appreciate that specific answer. I didn't know what to do about the sort of semi-encampment. I hadn't really noticed that before. So it sounds like you guys can go pick it up, so that's good to know. In terms of the other about, which was the one at least that was in my district, is a mall-like setting. So it's not just one store, it's a big anchor store, and then I guess there's a tree there, and so there's shade, which I totally get the business owners, you know, being compassionate. That's exactly what I try to teach, frankly, my own children. At the same time, you're not necessarily, though, doing the people hanging out under the tree any favors by basically refusing to have them be contacted. Phoenix Cares, when this specific example I'm thinking of was brought to my attention, didn't exist. So I was told, you know, by law enforcement, well, without, you know, the property owner complaining, we can't go out there and just accost people. I mean, even if they're panhandling, if the business owner says okay. So it sounds like now we're saying through Phoenix Cares, which again has been invented relatively recently and didn't exist when this first came up, I could have called you guys and you could have gone out even though it's on private property, and that's okay. I just want to make sure I'm phrasing that accurately, because that seems a little bit tricky.
Yes, Chairwoman Gallego, Councilman Waring, that is correct. We can at any time send out our outreach teams and navigators. That is our opportunity, as Marshall said, two-part. Try to get the individuals to engage in services, but also for those compassionate business owners, explain to them the more they work with us, the more they help us with the no trespassing. We're actually doing the individuals a service, because then that helps get them engaged to talk to the navigators and really get them in for services. Just letting them stay there and do whatever it is that they're doing is not helpful to the individual. So that allows us opportunity to really educate the businesses as well.
Madam Chair, if I could. So if the business owner asks you to leave or raises a stink, for lack of a better word, how does that go?
We would leave the property. It
It
doesn't happen very often.
The business's discretion. Hopefully most places would be welcoming. Again, I'm not criticizing any individual business in both the specific examples, the one in my district and the one that's not. These are big businesses that pretty much everybody's heard of. I appreciate, I think, the thought behind it, or what I assume they're trying to, the message they're trying to get across. But I think it sounds like from the expert panel we have in front of us, they're saying, you know, there's a different take on that. We could really help these people, and maybe they wouldn't be homeless. We can't probably solve everybody's problems, but there are services available that didn't even exist a couple of years ago. And I will say, from what I heard from the citizens' perspective, if you're not going to prosecute, or you're going to let people just camp out outside your business, word spreads, and that brings more of this activity to the neighborhoods where people live too. They're not just patronizing the business. So that is definitely causing some angst in both locations, or at least was, for for the neighbors, your surrounding neighbors. So that is also something that for anybody who might be watching who's a business owner and is weighing what to do in such a situation, there's more than just, hey, I don't want to be mean to people who are clearly down on their luck, so to speak. There is another component of this too, and I do sympathize also with the neighbors and their thoughts on this. So it's good that this should help us work through these situations.
We have had situations where you have multiple businesses in one location where one may be okay with it and others are not, and so neighborhood services does have to deal with that as well.
Yes, so where we do lead with services, we are a complaint-based program. We do heavy education once we've assessed and trying to connect the individuals, but oftentimes there's some violations happening. And so because of the complaint from an outside source, we're able to educate them on what they can and can't do. Camping's not necessarily allowed in all zoned places. So even if they have the property owner's permission, and there's litter, debris, and other things that are also against our ordinances, we educate them on that as well.
Well, and just finally, before we would call the police. I could call the police about both of these situations, and but this is a less law enforcement based approach. I think that could certainly help. There's certainly a place for that too, but I think this strikes a better balance perhaps for the business owner. Thank you.
Thank you. We had a card come in from Victoria.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for Phoenix Cares. I am part of the Tomahawk Village Block Watch, which is on the west side, and we have seen an increase in the homeless. And it seems like we just get them out and then they come back again. However, I'm also on the Block Watch Advisory Board representing Maryvale Estrella Mountain. And what we're hearing also is the rise in the homeless. Even though we've got this initiative and we're doing this, we're still seeing a rise. I am a rideshare provider, so I drive all over Maricopa County, and it seems like the homeless have taken place and now live in Phoenix. I don't see them driving through Glendale. I don't see them in Mesa. I don't see them in Tempe. I don't see them anywhere else but here, no matter where you get off the freeway, no matter what road you're on. So I'm just wondering, what is it that these other cities are doing that is causing the homeless not to be seen there? So that's just my comment. And again, thank you. This is great. I think it's a stepping stone, but we really need to get a handle on what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for your service to our community with multiple different hats. I can tell you from talking to some of my colleagues in those cities that they would not agree with your characterization, and that they also are, I think it's several of the, particularly downtown convenings, that is often the number one issue, but I don't know if we have any data to.
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, to your point, through our Maricopa Association of Governments, you are correct. Many of the municipalities are dealing with the same issue that we have. We actually went to a city managers meeting last year to talk with all of the city managers around the region on best practices and what each of the cities are doing to address some of these issues, because they are all faced with the same issue.
And it is not just us in Maricopa County. Could you sort of speak to nationally?
Right, nationally across the country, you're seeing an uptick in homelessness. And so again, MAG is hiring a consultant to come in to our region and look at the number of beds we have, the number of affordable housing units, and they're also going to be bringing in people from across the country, again, to talk about best practices and share across the country with what's working in different areas, as everybody is trying to address this issue nationally.
Thank you. Councilman Waring's question about state trust land seemed like one where there might be some low-hanging fruit. So our Deputy City Manager Peters is well acquainted with our government affairs. And I was wondering if it would be worth sitting down with state trust land and saying, you know, could we develop some kind of agreement, or could we urge them to have more funding for maintaining their property? I have a feeling one of those is more likely to be successful than the other.
Perhaps, Madam Chair, I'm happy to work with government relations and coordinate a conversation.
Okay. It seems like it at least is worth just making sure that they're aware of, and I don't represent as much state trust land as Councilman Waring, but we also have some in District 8, and it is also an area of improvement in my neck of the city. Wonderful, thank you. So this is the Housing Subcommittee, and we have several different tools to try to address affordable housing. And one of the things we've said is a priority is addressing chronic homelessness, and I think that should continue to be a priority. Is there anything we should add in that area about what we're doing with housing to end homelessness?
Madam Chair, members of the subcommittee, I think you would hear across the region, the City of Phoenix is viewed as a best practice for many of the things that you as council have already implemented. Our voucher program is one that's unique across the region, where we've allocated housing choice vouchers for homeless individuals. We've allocated domestic violence vouchers, which is also an issue in the homeless arena. You heard from Housing Director Stotler today on many of the projects they were awarding. There was homeless units created. All of those things help us and when we're trying to house people. I think the area we're focusing on right now is the navigation and outreach piece and that first point of contact. As Councilwoman Stark asked, because it takes multiple contacts, and as you can see, we were dealing with 388 cases, trying to make those multiple contacts while additional calls are coming in and having the navigators to continue to go out. That's an area that we're really trying to focus on right now, as well as the cleanups.
And I think this subcommittee has looked at the issue from multiple different perspectives. So it was our top priority this year with community development block grants, trying to get services out. We're trying to make it a focus of our housing vouchers. And I hope that all of these different tools will come together to address such a very important problem. Yesterday we had our budget meeting, and it's one of our top citywide priorities is getting more resources in the area. I am also hopeful we can do more for neighborhoods that are impacted. When you have a problem that has grown at such a high pace, a lot of the departments that have to address this have been doing it within their existing budget, and that's not sustainable. If program is growing what I would consider explosively, then we're going to have to put more resources into all departments that are partners on this. So hopefully we'll have that ability to do so going forward. Any further questions or comments? Thank you. Well, thank you for this update on this very important topic. It's great to see us working together across multiple departments.
I'd rather stay here. Yeah.
Members of the committee, thank you. Joining me in support of today's presentation is Housing Director Cindy Stadler and Neighborhood Services Director Chris Howell.
And welcome Don Logan, our Equal Opportunity Director.
Thank you. If I can figure this out here. We are a team. The month of April is nationally recognized as Fair Housing Month. Our purpose in presenting today is to provide you an update on the city's Fair Housing Initiative. Our discussion will include an introduction of the City Fair Housing Team, a snapshot of housing discrimination complaints, also share our community outreach efforts, as well as share events that are scheduled for the month of April. The primary responsibility for management of the city's fair housing program is the collaboration between equal opportunity, housing, and neighborhood services departments. EOD works collaboratively with neighborhood services and housing departments to promote fair housing programs and activities. EOD participates in monthly landlord-tenant activities and assists the housing department in resolving tenant issues with fair housing implications. Nationally and locally, incidents of housing discrimination continue to be among the underreported forms of discrimination. During fiscal year 2016-17, Equal Opportunity Department staff conducted 197 housing intakes where we engaged Phoenix residents who felt they were discriminated. Of those 197 intakes, 39 investigations resulted in formal investigations. Disability, race, and national origin continues to rank high in the number of complaints that are filed. In terms of our community outreach efforts, the Equal Opportunity Department is certified by HUD as a Fair Housing Assistance Program Assistant Agency. As part of the city's contractual agreement, EOD conducts fair housing education and outreach to inform residents of their rights under the city's Fair Housing Ordinance and Federal Fair Housing Act. EOD utilized funding from HUD, including CDBG funds, to promote housing activities. EOD conducted 19 educational presentations and workshops, reaching more than 540 residents. NSD hosted quarterly landlord-tenant clinics. The Housing Department hosted several Section 8 landlord forums, and EOD staff booths at the community college, community fair, and regional unity walks. During the month of April, fair housing events planned include the Phoenix Pride Festival, which will be held at Steele Indian School Park on April 7th, 2018, with city departments, including members of our council, including the mayor, who participates annually in our parade. EOD will staff booths at the festival to distribute information regarding the fair housing program. On April 21st, 2018, the ASU Center for the Study of Race and Democracy will host a community affair that is targeted at diverse community leaders and held prior to the Delivering Democracy lecture, which will feature Mr. Van Jones. EOD staff will attend and distribute educational materials to attendees for the purpose of increasing citizens' knowledge of the fair housing rights. We'll also, the Arizona Fair Housing Symposium will be held in Phoenix on April 27th. Will be held at the 360 Abilities, and EOD will present in partnership with Arizona Fair Housing a full-day workshop titled Fair Housing Opportunities 50 Years and Counting, as this year represents the 50-year anniversary of the Fair Housing Act. This event will include 14 speakers and panelists from housing industry, academic institutions, and more, including some of our own staff. Throughout this month, EOD investigative staff will participate in the city, along with the city's communication staff, as guest speakers discussing issues of housing issues in both English and Spanish-speaking channels. With that, Madam Chair, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Wonderful, thank you. Any questions?
Busy April.
It's certainly a topic of great importance, and there's been coverage in the news about it, including mortgage applications from certain communities that are still feeling like housing discrimination is a big problem. So it's a big task ahead, but hopefully people will be aware of the resources that are available, and maybe this will be a good opportunity in April to raise awareness of so much that is already happening in our community. Wonderful. Well, thank you for your leadership in this area.
Thank you.
That is our final presentation for this subcommittee meeting. We have no cards from the public. Any future agenda items? With that, we are adjourned.